episode, we talked to Tony and Obie Award-winning writer and performer Sarah Jones about her latest one-woman show on sex work called Sell by Date. Some of Sarah's characters will join us too, through Sarah, who is a genius mimic. And we talk live in studio with journalist Patrick Hilsman about ISIS and his addiction to heroin versus his addiction to reporting on the Middle East. Patrick writes for places like The Daily Beast, Alternate, and is the associate editor of a new daily website called The Influence, which focuses on addiction and recovery from a harm reduction perspective. And in really exciting news, we will be having our first ever live taping of The Katie Halper Show in front of an audience. So come on down. It's free. Wednesday, January 6th at 8 p.m. at the Brooklyn Commons at 388 Atlantic Avenue. Our guest will be Jay Smooth, whose videos on politics, race, pop culture, and hip-hop have garnered millions of views and praise from people like Rachel Maddow, who's called his work genius, Wired Magazine, which called him the hardest blogging man in hip-hop, and Salon, which called him one of the sexiest men alive. Can't make it on Wednesday? We'll be live streaming it from the Brooklyn Commons website. But if you're anywhere within the New York City area, come to the Brooklyn Commons Cafe and Performance Space at 388 Atlantic Avenue. Have some food or beer or wine while you watch our live talk show. And, as always, please subscribe to The Katie Halper Show on iTunes, rate it, and write a review if you want. But definitely subscribe and give it some stars. Just go on iTunes and search for The Katie Halper Show and tell your friends about the show. You can also follow us on SoundCloud. This Wednesday, January 6th at 6 p.m., you can find us on the WBAI radio waves, just as you can every other Wednesday. But this Wednesday, January 6th at 8 p.m., you can also find us live at the Brooklyn Commons for our first live taping of The Katie Halper Show, where we'll be talking to Jay Smooth. So come on down and we'll see you there. Hello and welcome to The Katie Halper Show. If it's 6 p.m. and it's on a Wednesday, you're listening to the Katie Halper Show. There's really nothing else to do. Let's just get it out there. You're listening to WBAI 99.5 FM, WBAI.org. It is December 30th. Anyone have any New Year's resolutions they want to share?
I would like to be out of debt.
Okay, so any realistic resolutions?
Oh, well, you said
that's more
realistic.
Like a fantasy than
You know, that's the sad thing. What's scary is that winning the lottery seemed to be more as a plan B more and more every day.
Right. Oh, by the way, speaking of winning the lottery, we hit the jackpot. We've hit pay dirt. I don't get why that's a good thing, but apparently it is. We have later on in the show, our second guest calling in is Sarah Jones.
What?
Performance.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
One-woman show,
right.
writer, performer, Tony Award-winning and Obie Award-winning. But if you want to be concise and efficient, you just say Toby Award-winning.
Is she just did a TED Talk. I stumbled upon her TED Talk on YouTube.
Her TED Talk is one of the most popular ones.
She's a longtime supporter of WBAI.
That she is. She's been called a master of the genre by the New York Times. And she did a show, Bridge and Tunnel, which was produced off-Broadway by NBD, no big deal, Oscar winner Meryl Streep.
Oh.
And then it went to Broadway, and that's where she won a special Tony Award. And she's going to be talking to us about her new work, which is a solo show, Sell by Date. Get it? Sell by Date. It's a pun, which is about sex work. And we're going to talk to her later, so we're really excited. By the way, time out, guys. December 30th. So I'm going to say happy birthday to Jeannie Hopper.
Yes,
and
Jeannie. Yeah.
Happy birthday to Jay Smooth.
Jay Smooth.
Two institutions at WBAI.
My birthday was last week.
Oh, my Lord. Oh,
yeah.
my young lords.
Your Lord's birthday was also.
Oh, yeah. Was it JC's? You're welcome, Christians. From the Jews, you're welcome.
Well, actually,
Jewish
some say
mother.
that his birthday was on June.
Oh, okay.
But for the lack of argument, let's say it was on the 25th of
Your birthday?
December.
When's your birthday?
It was the 23rd. It was last Wednesday.
Reggie!
Why didn't you tell us?
You know what, Reggie?
You're on Facebook all the time. How could you not know?
Dar Williams would have sung you happy birthday. Dar Williams was on last week.
Yeah.
She would have sung you happy birthday, I bet. I'm speaking for Dar right now, but
Well,
I bet
I'm
you
pretty
would
sure
have.
she would.
Next time, okay, I find out that Reggie's married just
Right.
because I noticed a ring.
Yeah.
Someone put a ring on it.
Yeah,
Lucky
well,
lady put a ring on
yeah,
it.
well.
What I did notice from Facebook is that you finally put up that you're married.
Yeah, it took a while.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like I'm trying to hide or anything like that. I work. I'm a busy man.
I thought you were going to say I'm a businessman. Reggie, of course, is our engineer, the savior of the show. And I'm here, as always, with a very contemplative Gabe Pacheco. Very funny man, Gabe Pacheco, comedian.
What's up, guys? Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Katie. I'm here. I just wanted to interject, jump in Reggie's birthday, December 23rd. Is that
Right.
correct, my man?
No, that is correct.
Right. You know, you're not the only December baby. I'm December 22nd.
I know, and I said happy birthday to you as well.
Yeah, man. So that's great.
OMG.
That was the first time I made that connection.
You know what? I did text you happy birthday, right, Gabe?
Yeah, you did.
And I said, happy birthday, how's your day going? I was very concerned.
Thank you.
Well,
I
you
felt
couldn't
like
have texted me. You couldn't
I
have
didn't
texted
know it
anyone.
was yours.
Well, you couldn't text it because my phone was stolen.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
You
my
see,
phone was stolen
actually,
earlier
Reggie,
this
I texted
month.
You.
Yeah.
I texted you.
Oh,
Happy
okay,
birthday.
really?
I guess you
okay.
didn't get it 'cause your phone was stolen.
Yeah,
Someone
the phone
got
was stolen. Yeah,
Someone got it.
someone got it.
I just want to announce that next week, we're very excited. We are having our first Katie Halper show and tell. A live show.
In vivo.
And vivo. It's
vivo.
live in that it's not live on WBA. It's a little confusing. It's live streamed, and it's live in front of an audience. And you come, sit with us, and our guest is going to be Jay Smooth. So you guys got to come.
What? Jay
Yes.
Smooth from YouTube?
Jay Smooth from YouTube.
No,
the
Jay
YouTube
Smooth from
sensation.
WBAI.
You
Well-
mean Jay Smooth from WBAI with the hip-hop
Exactly.
show?
That's right,
Who
with
started
Underground Railroad.
New York's
That's
longest
right.
running hip-hop radio show.
Correct.
And he's got the ill doctrine.
The
In the ill doctrine.
There's been a gap for decades between lefties who think that economic justice automatically covers racial justice and those who think that racial justice is actually a thing of its own that you need to focus on. This pressure from Black Lives Matter has gotten Bernie Sanders to bridge that gap more than he ever has before, and that's a win for everybody. Everybody's winning right now. Black Lives Matter is doing exactly what people said they couldn't do. They're focusing on electoral politics and having specific impact on policy discussion. And that work is already bringing each of the candidates a little bit closer to truly representing all of the people they're supposed to serve.
Actually, Rachel Maddow called him a genius.
He is.
Now, he is a genius.
He is.
But also, I want to say...
He doesn't like it, but
Yeah.
I
You know who else
call
doesn't
him.
like being called a genius? Ta-Nehisi Coates. And we're so thrilled to have with us the genius, literally the genius. Not just me saying that. It's also the MacArthur Grant saying that. Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Not quite a genius yet.
When people say genius, you don't turn your head?
When it's said ironically, it's
Oh.
fine, but any degree of earnestness added to that makes my skin crawl.
See, not just genius, ladies and gentlemen, but humble.
The
Humility.
humble genius.
Humble genius. Oh, that should be the name of your next...
I like that.
Humble genius.
I
It's
like
great.
that. Humble genius.
HGs.
But someone else, HGs, but someone else will have to write it, because obviously. This show should be called The Katie Halper Show, following humble geniuses. So, guys, the Katie Halper Show and Tell, Gabe, Reggie, and I will be there. We'll be talking to Jay Smooth over cocktails, by the way.
Shirley
be at-
Temples with vodka.
Surely you're not serious.
Mm-hmm.
And don't call me Shirley.
Yeah, I love that film.
So that's Airplane, everyone. So
Yeah.
that will be at the Brooklyn Commons, which is a really cool cafe, bar, performance space, community space, and it's at 388 Atlantic. It's in the same building as WBAI, and we're
That's
going to
right.
have our first live taping of the Katie Halper Show, and it's going to be some hot WBAI on WBAI live action in which we talk to
You think-
WBAI host.
You think
Jay
the
Smooth.
listeners are ready for Katie Halper After Dark?
I think so. Maybe we'll add that to the title. We're experimenting. We're going through a phase. It's like,
I mean, it's
experiment.
further into the night, but it's not late night or anything.
No, it's not late. So it's
Yeah.
8 p.m.
Yeah.
and it's free. Guys, totally free. 8 p.m. Wednesday, January 6th, ring in the new year with me, Gabe, Reggie, and Jay Smooth. And it's free. Did I mention that? And, have a little drink, have some nosh. What I hate, by the way, really quickly, I can't stand this. When people write on Facebook or Twitter, I'm so humbled by the rave reviews about my book. No, you're not, because if you were, you wouldn't say that.
That's right.
Am I right?
Yeah, humbled by all of my
Praise.
my wins.
Yeah,
My wins
exactly.
in 2015. Allow me to list them all in this really
Well, that is
long
something
and tedious Facebook
So
post to
annoying.
make you feel bad.
And this
Bastard.
third voice in the wilderness that is Brooklyn, is Patrick Hilsman, or should I say Patrick Hilsman?
Anything works.
Patrick Hilsman, who's a great journalist. He writes for places like the Daily Beast, Vice News, The Stranger, Syria Deeply, Mashable, Vocative, CSM, HuffPo. And he writes about Syria and the Middle East and also drugs, and he makes crepes. And he's going to be talking about an article that he wrote for the Daily Beast just this week, what the GOP gets wrong about ISIS. And he even got to go on Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC. And
Just
I know,
ISIS?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you have to do one thing at a time.
Oh, okay.
Or else,
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
you're
All right.
waiting for all of
right.
eternity. You can never leave. But Patrick, you are here. Patrick, welcome.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
First, I want to know a little bit about your life experience, because it's not every journalist who writes about Syria and drugs, or the Middle East and drugs, not as in the drug trade in the Middle East, but as two separate entities. So can you tell us why those two things interest you?
Well, I mean, obviously it's because of my personal experience, because I was a heroin addict for 3 years, and I think that it's sort of a cliche that, ex-junkie war journalist, people have written books about it. I guess that it's just sort of whatever it is in you that you're looking for, and that kind of adventure, if I can say that, is similar in a certain way. I know that Chris Hedges said that war is like a drug, and I don't really agree that it's exactly like a drug, because anytime I'm in Syria, I'm miserably frightened and just I'm not holding a very good composure, so I can't really describe that as like a pleasurable feeling, but it's addictive, I guess, in the way that like a time machine would be addictive.
How is that? What do you mean?
Well, because it's dangerous, but it just really, really like sort of strips off the veil of like society or like how the world works in a weird way.
Do you feel like once you've said to people that you were you called yourself a junkie, right?
Sure, yeah,
is that like a fat, like when people reclaim the word fat?
I don't know. I think that it's just a...
It's like neutral.
I think it's
when
neutral,
you,
but I think that I know that a lot of ex-addicts who use it.
Okay.
Let's reclaim it. Let's take it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, right here, December
It's official.
30th, we are reclaiming, well, not we, because I can't, but some of my best friends. Patrick Hilsman is going to reclaim the word junkie. And do you find that sometimes if you tell that to people, do they then take your war journalism less seriously? Do they dismiss you as a serious kind of professional?
Shockingly, no, actually. At first, I didn't. I was a little bit shy about it for like the first year of covering the Middle East, but because I didn't want to be that guy that was like, "Hey, I do war and drugs, and yada yada." But
stay away from me. I'm bad news, chicks. Yeah.
But I wanted to sort of stand on my own merits and be able to cover some interesting topics, and the situation has just evolved or devolved so rapidly that it's hard for me to take a step back and kind of get perspective on my own story. But I think as I've matured a little bit and gotten away from that point where I was actually addicted, I think it's good for me to write about it and to sort of confront it. And I think there's a lot of stereotypes and a lot of just insane BS out there about addiction.
We had a really interesting interview with Johan Hari about this, who's the author of Chasing the Scream. But Gabe, feel free to interject with any questions, because Gabe, we spoke before the show, as is our wont, and Gabe was very excited about your work. Can I say that?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
No, I really, I was thinking about Johan Hari's book and sort of the different approaches people take on addiction, and then reading your article on the blog around heroin users.
Yelp for heroin.
Yelp for heroin. So every other product in the world has Consumer Reports,
right.
And so why shouldn't heroin? And of Johan Hari's arguments was that subculture around drugs in and of itself can be romantic and alluring, and then the more banal and routine you can make drug use, the less appeal it has.
Right,
and,
the forbidden fruit thing, right?
Like people who don't want it to be legal.
Totally.
How exciting it is.
Right.
Yeah, there's a truth to that, and it's sort of like the whole adventure aspect, I guess.
Just so listeners know, this is an article that Patrick Hilsman wrote for Alternate called The Hidden Story of Middle Class Heroin in Brooklyn and Beyond. Mm-hmm. And it opens with an underground website that rates heroin quality and safety is helpful, but also reveals what addicts in America must resort to for harm reduction. What do you mean by what addicts in America must resort to for harm reduction?
There's not any service out there to like put out a signal when something's going to kill you. And actually how I actually came across the blog was that in 2010 I overdosed, and it was like a kind of like a near-death experience thing. By the way, nothing between life and death. Total blackness. I don't believe in that.
Oh, no light? God didn't ask you?
Absolutely not.
God didn't say we're sending you back to Earth for another chance?
Nope. Just blackness. Total darkness.
Heaven can wait. You woke up in like a different body.
As a puppy?
Yeah.
Isn't that a dog movie?
I wasn't technically dead, but like...
All dogs go to heaven, sorry. Sorry.
But, no, I was actually... there was this brand that hit the streets in like 2010 that was called Purple Label, and a lot of people overdosed from it, including myself. And I was actually I was curious about it, if like anybody had written about it online, and I was Googling it, and that's how I came across the website. And I just sent an email to Eve, who runs it, and I said that I'm a former addict, no judgments, I'm just really interested in this story, would you talk to me? It turns out we had a mutual friend, and she just came over to my place and did an interview. It was very interesting.
And the mutual friend is okay?
She's okay now, yeah.
Okay, good.
And I just found that the whole subculture around sort of junkies or heroin addicts regulating.
That's our word, not yours.
It's your word. Yeah, but
air quotes or something, right?
But the idea that they would go out of their way to be helpful towards one another, and that sort of, I guess there would be a myth of sort of a drug addict as being selfish.
Yes, totally.
Well,
yeah.
I gotta just speak for myself that I think that for me it was very selfish. But there is
what was very selfish?
Being
sorry.
a drug addict, of course.
Right. Okay.
But you're right in the sense that it's not all there is to it.
Right.
I mean, and it's true that I think it was in the book Train Spotting where they said that
Trainspotting.
The problem's not the heroin, it's when it runs out. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Shifting gears a little bit,
Sure.
just because you have this double focus, double expertise. Can you talk about how you got into reporting on the Middle East and also your French perspective and your French background, and then tell us a little bit about the article about what the GOP gets wrong about ISIS, which is like, we don't have time for the 72-hour long monologue on that, but
I was born in New York and I moved to Jersey when I was pretty young, and so I mostly grew up in Jersey. My mom's from France, my dad's from here. He speaks really good French.
Oh, good.
And
the French even think so?
Yeah, actually.
Wow, they don't make fun of him?
That's an accomplishment.
Wow,
no,
that is.
They don't.
Yeah, none of the waiters make fun of him when he goes.
They wouldn't dare.
When he gets okay.
When he orders his frog legs?
Yeah, he'll kick their ass.
Oh, nice.
In French. No. Yeah, I grew up in Jersey and I went to Columbia. And honestly, I think that a part of getting addicted was the stress of Columbia, honestly, because it's crazy. But after I was clean, I had always been interested in the Middle East because my college girlfriend was Egyptian. So by total coincidence, I'd been very interested in the Balkans at that point. And I ended up dating an Egyptian, and I went to visit her in Egypt, and I started to sort of learn that so much of the stereotypes that we know are insanely wrong, and this was very close to 9/11. So I was so fascinated by. I don't want to really fetishize any culture because I think that's wrong, and that's not the point. But
This is a safe space for fetishizing.
We're all about fetishes here.
Okay, good. We can bring out the whips and okay. But what's fascinating about it to me is how very wrong we get it. And, the Orientalism is a very intelligent thesis.
Edward Said.
Yeah, and when
Presente.
I went to college.
So after I got clean, the Arab Spring had happened, and I was just so... I remember actually at one point when I was detoxing, I was just getting clean, and I saw the news that Mubarak had just been overthrown, and I literally burst into tears. Like, it was really like a transformative moment in a weird way, and it's strange because it doesn't really have very much to do with me. But it just seemed like
Do you Egyptian identify?
No, not at all.
Just checking. Again, a safe space in case you do.
But it was just people who lived in this system that was so oppressive for generations, and it just seemed like it was impossible that anything would ever change. And now, of course, we're back to fascist, horrible dictator.
Right, that's the thing that always seems to happen.
Hopefully he'll be in the ground soon. But
so,
reminds me of the Bernie Sanders quote. Remember when, this wasn't external regime change, but when he's like, it's very easy, relatively easy to do regime change. The question is what comes after.
Yeah, but Egypt was not regime change. That was people being pissed off at their government.
Well, it was internal regime change.
Internal
Yeah,
regime change,
exactly. Yeah.
But so when the Arab Spring happened, and for some reason I knew a little bit about the culture of Ba'athist Syria, and I knew that there was a tradition of extreme violence against dissidents there. So as soon as it sort of started going off in Syria, I knew that it would turn violent, and I thought that this was a good subject to focus on. So I moved to Beirut and started interning for Syria Deeply, which is a blog that focuses only on Syria. And then I just I got frustrated by the culture of journalism in Beirut because it's a lot of doing journalism from afar. So I just kind of said, to heck with it, and I took a trip to Aleppo with another journalist and got a view from the ground there.
So were your parents relieved? They're like, okay, our son is clean, and now he's reporting from Aleppo. Like, which one made them more nervous?
Harm reduction, off heroin, in the war zone.
Heroin would make them more nervous,
right?
For sure.
That makes sense, yeah. And what can you tell us about what the GOP gets wrong about ISIS? Not just the GOP, though. We're on WBAI.
Yeah,
We're
everybody.
beyond that. What does everyone get wrong about ISIS, and what is the solution? What would you say is the solution?
Okay. There's a couple things to know about ISIS. For starters, they're incredibly good at fighting armies that don't really care about fighting them that much. You know, that's sort of that's why they're amazing. And it's kind of ironic because all these bizarre strategies are being floated, but they're just people, you know. 2014, I got a chance to go back to Aleppo. I'd been there twice before. And I got to see the areas that had been liberated from ISIS by other rebel groups. And it was really fascinating to see this because the other groups that moved in to kick out ISIS definitely had the support of the population, and they were able to do it in like 6 weeks from Aleppo province. That's a spectacular victory against something that, I mean, all the major powers are fighting them and they can't beat them. So it's like a joke, you know. So
what does that tell us?
That tells us that everyone is lying, that it's complete BS. I mean, like Putin says that he's in there fighting ISIS and he's just killing civilians and killing ISIS's opponents. They've gained territory against other groups since he's been there. America's slightly more respected on the ground because we pay more attention to avoiding civilian casualties, but we still killed civilians. And the fact is that the military force that we apply is more about calming internal political issues than about actually helping the people. So
calming internal political issues
in
here?
America,
okay.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Russia.
people are freaking out about beheading videos.
Exactly.
So, okay. So let's say you somehow become president, right? What would you do? Like, I'm curious about kind of both the ideal solution from a utopian perspective of like, you know, I would overthrow capitalism and then blah blah blah. But both of those things, but also what would a president of the United States be able to do?
I think from the start, when there was the initiative, this really doesn't sit well with the pacifist in me because I protested the Iraq War and all that, but I really want to emphasize the point that Syria is not Iraq. I hear a lot of people saying that we're in there for the oil, which is really funny because there's not that much oil in comparison with other countries. It's not an OPEC nation. I think that a no-fly zone would have dramatically changed the situation because part of the selling point of the jihadi groups was that they say the West are infidels, they won't help us, they don't care about us. And the first time I went to Aleppo, there were so many nationalist rebels, so many secularists who were rebels. Somebody showed me a Richard Dawkins video, my first night in Syria, and I'm in a rebel safe house, and they're showing me Richard Dawkins. But at the same time, there's Islamists that come through as well.
Right.
So there was a broad variety, and I think that warfare works like in momentum in a weird way, because Jabhat Nusra, which was like the pinnacle of the jihadi group at the beginning, was much smaller, but in terms of effective fighting force, they were more powerful. Because they use suicide bombers and tactics like that.
So you would do what as president?
Okay, so they should have done a no-fly zone. There's no question about that because the situation resembles Bosnia. Right now, basically, I think the best thing to do is to make the demands that will make life easier on the population there. We can't do a no-fly zone over the entire country because Russia is there. So that's war with Russia. It's impossible. But the way that Syrians view us is negative because we're not asking for things that would help them. You know, people that think that Assad is stability, that's crazy because there's no such thing as a time machine. This is, if you ask refugees who left, most of them will say they left because of the bombardment and because of the regime. So, and they know a lot of them are avoiding conscription. So if Assad stays in power, they will never go home.
Okay.
That's the only solution where no one ever goes home. It's war forever.
So that's where the Iraq-Syria comparison of evil dictator but who provides stability does not translate. Isn't it?
So America has poured fuel on the fire in some senses, but it's not America that really destabilized Syria. It's truth that destabilized Syria.
Are there sectarian groups or different political interest groups that could be empowered or given some sort of support that would?
I think almost anybody with any power in that country is evil at this point.
Nice. Okay.
I don't think that it's.
So all the good ones have left?
Yeah, but that's not really. There's an
like
addendum to that.
Like Fallujah in American Sniper? I'm just kidding, but I did just see that.
So it's just full of Sith warlords. What?
Well, no. There's an addendum to that I'm going to say. Is that we tend to think we say that there's no real secular opposition. Okay, in terms of military fighting force, that's true. But at the same time, I know people, activists who espouse political beliefs that are completely counter to the Islamists, who they can go to areas that are controlled by certain Islamist militias, no problem whatsoever. If they go back to the regime, they're in prison. And that's an example that I was saying about what American policy should do, is we should try and empower people who will make a change. If we're going to make a demand, we should demand that they release those secular prisoners that they're holding. I mean, they're holding thousands and thousands of people who are not jihadis, people who are basically pacifists, some of them, and we haven't made any demands on behalf of them. It's just ISIS is not the only issue. It's ridiculous.
Well, speaking of demands, we're going to have to demand that you come back. How you like that?
Okay,
you can
good.
find Patrick on Twitter at Patrick Hilsman, and definitely we're going to have you back because we have to have a whole show with you. We're now going to we're very excited to speak to Sarah Jones, who's an Obie and Tony Award-winning performer and writer. And the common theme or the common thread, if we want to make a transition between what you were talking about, Patrick, and Sarah Jones is talking about, is harm reduction. Whether or not you think that's the correct way to go. But Sarah Jones is going to be talking to us about her new show, Sell by Date, which deals with sex work. Sarah, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Sarah, by the way, as we said, is working on Can I call you Sarah, by the way?
I don't know what else I would have you call me.
Ms. Jones.
I'd have to make something else up. No, Ms. Jones will not do. Sarah's great.
Okay, great. Well, Sarah's new show that she's working on, Sell by Date, will be at New York Live Arts starting January 6th, 6th through 10th, and then 12th through 16th, correct?
That's correct.
And that's
12
in Chelsea.
Shows.
12 shows. And you have some really cool talkbacks with really cool guests afterwards, including Maria Popova and Kathy Najimy and Arjun Poo.
Yeah.
So,
some of my favorite people. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it sounds really exciting. And for people who don't know, Sarah Jones is like just an incredible performer, writer, mimic. I don't want to call you mimic. I feel like that belittles you, but you do an amazing impersonation. Channeling, yes. Channeling, yeah. You have been called a master of the genre by the New York Times, and lots of people out here listening to WBI, I'm sure, have seen or heard of Bridge and Tunnel, which was amazing. And I was really interested in the fact that I didn't know this until I was looking into your bio, but that you actually planned to become a lawyer originally. Is that right?
That's right.
So did I, actually, weirdly enough, and never did that either. But
lucky you. Lucky both of you.
Yeah. And this is Reggie, our engineer, and Gabe is here, my co-host, Gabe Pacheco, comedian.
Yes,
and
present.
And Patrick Hilsman, who we just spoke to about, drugs and ISIS and other fun topics. Also, you went to Eunice, right?
I did.
School. And then you met Gloria Steinem. She's a fan of yours. So much of what you've done is kind of been in the service of activism and organizing. So you were commissioned for the National Immigration Forum, and you also worked with W.K. Kellogg Foundation to raise awareness of ethnic and racial health disparities in the U.S., which led to A Right to Care, your fourth solo piece. And you were recently invited to, no big deal, #NBD, but Michelle Obama invited you to the White House, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How was that?
One of the, I guess I had sort of an out-of-body experience the first time, and then I've been invited back. It's an incredible experience to, be the opening act for President Obama. It's a really strange feeling.
Was he upset? Yeah. Was he like, I can't go on after this?
You know what? He was just fine.
Oh, yeah.
The great news is, he managed very well, and I am roughly the same height as the First Lady, so they didn't even need extra adjustment to the podium. I think that's why they had me back.
I'm sure it was just a height issue. No talent. Talent had nothing to do with it.
I'm an easy guest. Yeah. Although the characters do eat a lot more than I always joke to people that make sure you have an army's worth of food in the green room because I'm bringing 14 people with me.
Oh, yeah. You're eating for 14.
I'm eating for 14, right. Although that's probably an American standard right now, but don't get me into that.
Oh, yeah. So true. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and how that influences your ability to impersonate so many different characters of different ethnic backgrounds, and also how you discovered you had this talent? Like, were you performing in front of your parents as a 6-year-old, or how did you discover you were so good at this?
Well, lest you all get bored with me, I'm going to let a couple of characters answer some of these questions.
Perfect.
So we'll see if we can rustle somebody up now.
Yay.
To answer that one. Okay. Hi, Katie, sweetheart. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
I can. How are you?
I'm on a contraption. It's not even a phone anymore. It's I don't know what this thing is, machine that makes you a souffle. Anyway, my name is Lorraine Levine, and it's wonderful to be here with all of you lovely people.
By the way, Lorraine, I want you to know that there's a tradition on the show where people don't laugh into the mic, even though that's the opposite of what I want them to do. But Patrick, the journalist sitting next to me, looked at me, lip synced, oh my God, when you started talking, and is red faced trying to control his laughter. But okay, sorry, Lorraine, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm very flattered. I don't know that I've said anything so funny so far, but maybe he's having anticipatory laughter response. I appreciate that. Anyway, what I'm here to tell you is that I and other friends of Sarah's, she calls us her friends, and we do what we have to do. But I always joke that she puts me in her shows, what she calls her one-woman shows, and then she takes the credit and makes us come out and do all the work.
Oh, God, that's so unfair. It sounds like you guys should organize or unionize to defend your rights.
I'm definitely a union supporter.
I knew that.
And I'll just say this. Sarah grew up in one of those families. You mentioned the Obamas. In my day, a mixed marriage was a reform marriage and orthodox.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But for her family, it's different colors of the rainbow and all of that. And so she heard all the different voices growing up as a little girl, just like you said. And she was a little sponge. And the next thing you know, she's off and running. So that's my 2 cents. But it's lovely visiting with you.
And how old was Sarah when she started doing these voices?
Hi, this is Nevada. I just wanted to cut in and say that Lorraine was talking a long time, so I would like to intervene, if that's okay.
Sure.
My name is Nevada, and I think I know that Sarah Jones, she had started kind of thing, long time before I was born. I'm Dominican. I'm from New York, and she's older. But, I think that she was growing up in the time in New York when, it was very diverse, and from the earliest memories that she was always doing that kind of thing, even though she didn't pursue it for her studies and everything like that. She never went to school and blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry if I'm talking a little bit fast. I get a little bit nervous because I know I'm on the radio. I don't want to say something stupid and I start talking too fast and nobody can understand me. Okay. Anyway, so that's, my understanding is that she just has started when she was little, very little, and all the things that you get in trouble for. I that's one of my philosophies. If it used to get you in trouble and kicked out of class, it's probably your passion. You should probably follow that.
And, I don't know if Sarah's still there, but I was wondering if Sarah had any of her friends around from Sell By Date.
Hi, I'm here. This is Sarah, and I am going to bring you a couple of Sell By Date friends. Just so you know, some of my friends from Bridge and Tunnel are sort of in the mix. Sell By Date is so much about people's lives and what kind of preconceived notions we have about people. In the same way, I think that Bridge and Tunnel was hopefully about, having more of a lens on who we all are as human beings than just focusing on any one ethnic background or, really trying to explore our full humanity. So let's see. Speaking of full humanity, I can think of one human being in Sell By Date who is very full of lots of things.
I know, the woman at Carnival?
She's very full, yes, but I think people can come to the theater and meet her, but
okay.
Hi, Katie. My name is Bella, and first of all, I'm just a super admirer of yours, and I know Sarah Jones because she came to my school to give a pluralism workshop or whatever, and I feel that as a feminist, which first of all, I'm named for Bella Abzug, who's obviously a really important feminist from history, but I just feel that the topics that we cover in Sell By Date are topics that everyone should talk about. So that's why I'm here. And I just feel that no matter what age you are, people can call me a millennial, whatever. It's just kind of I don't need anyone to label me with the word that makes them feel comfortable around me just because they're chronologically advanced.
That's very non-ageist of you that you call them that, chronologically advanced.
Yeah, I totally feel I want to respect people and reach out across all the divides, and especially not just being an ally of people of color, though I also consider myself to be a person of a color, just more a pinkish beige color, but I do understand power dynamics and hierarchy, and I just want to be helpful to everyone.
Do you check your white privilege?
I have actually had my white privilege, like, removed.
Oh, wow.
You can, like, exfoliate it away.
Nice. So you're in, like, a post-racial space, personally, at least you are.
I'm totally, like, post-progressive.
Right.
Like, yeah, I just feel that it's, like, my duty to, like, reach out across, especially with, like, again, like, feminism. Like, people can even get upset about, like, well, why do you talk like that? And it's like, talk like what? Like, I think we need to reach out not only across, like, ethnic lines and, like orientation and, like, everything, like across the vocal ranges.
Yes. What's it called? Vocal fry? Fray?
People call it vocal fry, but as a vegan, I feel that, like, the word
Patrick,
fry sort of implies that you eat maybe, like, cooked animal. I just don't appreciate it.
It's problematic.
Very problematic.
By the way, as I'm talking to you, I subconsciously am twirling my hair in the way that, like, I didn't even realize it, that girls who talk like this kind of do. Do you know what I'm talking about? When they they grab onto a piece of hair and they twist it when they are talking.
Like they twisting it?
Yeah. So I just want you to know that's how powerful you are to me, Bella.
I am really taking that in right now.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Bella's awesome.
Bella is awesome. And does Bella or Sarah or anyone else want to talk about how Sarah started working on Sell by Date and what made her want to address or look at or explore sex work?
Let's see who. This is me, Sarah. I'm trying to think if there's anybody who wants to dive in. I know. I pressed them into service. Well, I think it's important to say, like, you know, there are so many myths and there's so much misinformation and, frankly, just so little basic humanity in our conversation about, you know, whether you want to call it commercial sex or sex work or prostitution or pornography, you know, whatever, however we're sort of framing these issues and ideas. I think for far too many people, they are issues and ideas that are abstract and not connected to, you know, real human beings who are doing their best to live a self-determining life on a planet that seems to want to rob us of both self and determination.
It's funny. We had Melissa Gira Grant on the show, who wrote Playing the Whore and writes a lot about sex work. And she said something that I always remember, which is kind of like, people always want to talk about sex work, but not about sex workers. So they want to tell you their opinion on sex work, but they don't want to talk about, like, the reality of the lives of sex workers, which is something I encounter a lot, and which is so great about your TED Talk captures some of these characters in Sell by Date, and it's so great because you do explore their kind of full humanity, and you offer a variety of perspectives, ranging from, can I talk about, it's on your TED Talk, so is that kosher?
It's totally kosher.
Okay, awesome. So one of the
characters... It's halal.
It's halal and kosher, awesome. One of the characters is an Irish woman, and she was forced into sex work by her heroin-addicted husband. And another one is a woman who's from Trinidad, and I love her line where she says something like, it's not liberating, but it pays. And my family doesn't know about it, but they know that my kids know that they get their school books and their tuition paid. And I think that character is so fascinating because one of the things that we talked about on the show in the past is kind of, there is this whole debate about whether sex work is liberating or exploitative, but at the end of the day, don't we as kind of progressives want to improve conditions of jobs, whether or not they're liberating or exploitative?
You know, this has been a journey for me of so many interviews with so many people in so many contexts. And I'll tell you that I've had my head kind of spun around 360 degrees, 360 times. And no matter how I look at this debate, right, I mean, I'll just share about having been in Germany and having women there talk about, women in particular, who I met with, talk about how, you know, they have access to education, they have access to housing, they have access to social services that, you know, here, the very idea that people, you know, can have all the freedoms in the world and choose to do this work voluntarily, it's very different than talking to somebody in a country, mostly in Europe, or the folks I've talked to, who say, look, we're making this choice from a certain place. And, they'll be the first ones to say, a lot of times what we hear around, women in America is, this is the only way to make money. This is the only way to take care of my family. This is the only way that, for me to be able to pay medical bills. And so I was fascinated by how much this is a question that morphs every time you cross a border. It's the context shifts no matter where you are, who you are. There, you could tell, almost infinite stories about the different ways and reasons people, enter the sex trade. And what I want to look at is what kinds of choices do people really have? And you can't do that by painting everyone with a broad brush or only looking at it through, what's happening in the United States. Or are you talking about Mississippi or New York? I mean, those are two different worlds, truly. Right. So it really fascinated me to talk about these same issues with so many people who had myriad facets to how they're experiencing it personally. And where I really landed is I want the audience I just want to lay out a platter of, ideas and let people, come to it and experience these human beings. That's who they are, first and foremost. Our neighbors, our friends, our mothers, could have been myself. And one of the things I loved about doing this research is how clear I got that when I was, hanging out in hip-hop clubs and contemplating doing some video dancing and, maybe I'll do this and, I could strip for a little. I thought about all of it. And I just think that there's a lot less distance between all of us on this issue than we think. It really gets otherized. People really think it doesn't have any impact on them. Right. And, I really want people to come and connect. That's my goal with this show. And enjoy it. These people are beautiful human beings, every person I've met.
And how do you go about, what's your process? How do you go about interviewing people? How do you present to them what you're going to be doing? How do you kind of balance what they actually say with crafting a dramatically interesting narrative and monologue?
Right.
I just hit you with a bunch of questions. Sorry, but
no, that's okay. That was sort of a hydra.
Yeah.
Because I write the work. It's not documentary theater. I don't record people and then memorize it or anything like that. Like, I really try to come up with a whole new fictional, but from a place of, hopefully being informed by these people's real stories. I try to come up with something that is a composite of ideas that are really compelling to me and that feels true. I need the person's story to resonate with me. So I've met with and or read about, bonded with, you name it, hundreds of sources, hundreds of people, hundreds of articles. It's crazy. My process is take a vertical plunge into, a person's reality as deeply as they'll let me go, bearing in mind that, they are a reflection of me. I believe in this concept of I'm not really a separate self. I'm really here as part of this big organism of people's lives on Earth. And so if I'm otherizing someone or judging and thinking, I could never, or that's not me, then I'm really just in a hallucination. Like, the truth is, this person, but for their exact circumstances, is me. If I had the same choices they had, I probably would have done exactly what they did. And so that really helps me come from a place of, I'll listen to an interview, I'll meet people.
And how many people did you speak to personally?
There's a list that exists somewhere on Google Drive that has the exact number, but it's it would take me a long time to count them. Yeah.
And you went to different countries.
I went to different countries. I went to Korea and learned about the so-called comfort women, the women who were abducted as slaves.
Not according to the Japanese government.
No, that's right. Right. Well, let everybody.
But of course, you're right. Exactly.
I'm anxious to speak to them. I'd hope they can get tickets to the show.
That would be great. Bring it to Japan. Well, Sarah, we have to go because we are out of time, but we love talking to you, and we'd love to have you on again, do a deep dive, have 100,000 of your characters come in and do an interview. People can find you at Jones Sarah on Twitter.
Yeah.
And your website.
SarahJonesOnline.com.
SarahJonesOnline.com. Thank you so much. Everyone see Sell By Date. And thank you, Patrick Hilsman, for joining us, who, by the way, He will shortly be starting as associate editor of the new website, The Influence, a daily news site about recovery addiction that focuses on harm reduction and social consequences of drugs. And don't forget, next week, 8 o'clock at the Brooklyn Commons Cafe, the Katie Halper Show and Tell will be live in front of an audience with Jay Smooth. That's right, Jay Smooth of WBAI. Sarah, you should come. You're probably performing. You are performing that night. It's live streaming, so we'll send you a copy. And I'm going to ask you now, you don't have to commit, but I would love to have you on one of these live shows one of these months.
That sounds amazing, and have fun, and I will be there in spirit. Oh, amazing. I'll be there in spirit.
Great. Thank you so much. And everyone, go to her show. It's going to be fabulous. See you next week.
Great. Bye. Everybody.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
This Wednesday, January 6th at 6 p.m., you can find us on the WBAI radio waves, just as you can every other Wednesday. But this Wednesday, January 6th at 8 p.m., you can also find us live at the Brooklyn Commons at 388 Atlantic Avenue for our first live taping of the Katie Halper Show, where we'll be talking to Jay Smooth. So come on down and we'll see you there.